Okay, welcome to Unit 3, Physical Education, and we are now beginning Area of Study 2, Physiological Responses to Physical Activity. I think you'll find this area quite interesting, and it really does look at, the three major systems of the body. Alright, key knowledge and skills, very important area to refer to in any BCE subject, because this is what you will be assessed on, both in the exam and of course your SACs that we're doing. So we're looking at the key knowledge points here as the three main systems. We've got our cardiovascular system, respiratory and muscular systems. And for this dot point, we're specifically focusing on our acute responses. So acute just means immediate. And we're also looking at our oxygen uptake during rest and exercise and recovery. And of course, deficit, steady state, and excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, also known as EPOC. And yep, we'll have a look at some key skills also. All right, the first thing we need to sort of get out there is what is an acute response? Well, when exercise commences, the body needs to make a number of short changes, quick changes, basically to enable this movement to occur and to keep on occurring at a nice high intensity. These changes are actually known as acute responses. Basically, as soon as you start exercising, as soon as you start moving around at a higher intensity, there is a demand for oxygen at the working muscles. And also, we need to get the energy substrates there. And once we start moving around, we also need to remove waste products such as lactic acid or hydrogen ions, and of course carbon dioxide or CO2. All right, so the three systems that we're focusing on, as I've already mentioned, we've got the cardiovascular, which incorporates the heart, which is cardio, the vascular, which is your vessels, arteries, veins, capillaries, and of course the blood, which flows within those vessels. We've got the respiratory, so they're all the things to do with lungs and breathing, and our muscular systems as well. So obviously that's how the movement occurs, that we need certain energy substrates and different things getting delivered to the muscles to enable you to work at your optimal intensity. All right, one more key point to make here is that with all of these responses that we're going to look at shortly, this is very much dependent upon the intensity, the duration, and the type of exercise that is occurring. So the harder you're going, the more, the responses will hopefully occur quicker. Or of course, if they're going for a long period of time, then our body needs to respond accordingly. All right, little slide here. It sort of talks about these acute responses, occurring across, when we rest. Then when we go from a rest, obviously we're starting to exercise, so we experience a bit of oxygen deficit. So the supply of oxygen doesn't meet the demand of what we're trying to achieve. Once we have been going for a little while and we settle into a nice tempo, we reach a steady state. And the key point there is that the oxygen supply is meeting the demand. And then we're stopped, the game's finished, whatever it is that you're doing. We have what's called EPOC, which I just referred to before as excess post-exercise oxygen consumption or oxygen debt. And basically, your body's just repaying the debt from what's just occurred. So if there's a shortage of oxygen at the start, it needs to make up for that by increasing your respiratory rates at the conclusion of activity. And the key words that you can see on the screen there, obviously, your body has a fuel requirement to enable that movement to occur. The higher the intensity that you want to work at, the higher the ATP demand will be. It might even require the use of the anaerobic system as well as the aerobic system working together if you're going very fast. Of course, how efficiently we can deliver that oxygen to the working muscles, and then of course remove the wastes. Then of course, how do we do that? Through these three responses that you can see along the bottom of the screen here. So we need those three systems to work together and efficiently to enable your physical activity to occur at a high intensity, or at least at any intensity really. All right, so just looking at our acute respiratory responses, there's basically, again, it's all to do with breathing. So ventilation, if we look at that, is basically the total volume, so the amount of air inspired and expired per breath, your respiratory rate, number of breaths per minute, is what we add together or times together to work out our ventilation. That's pretty much the key thing. So you can see in the little table below here, your normal breathing rate, 12 breaths per minute, your regular tidal volume, 0.5 of a litre per breath. So therefore, 0.5 times 12, we get 6 litres per minute. This is going to be different for everyone depending on your lung capacity, chest size, and level of training and the ability of your lungs to take in the oxygen. But intense exercise, when you're breathing rapidly, 50 breaths per minute sometimes. Your total volume, anywhere up to 3 litres per breath, sometimes even more for the big units like NEV. And then also your ventilation can anywhere up to 150 litres per minute. So if you just think about it for a minute, that's 300 Coca-Cola bottles of air that your body can breathe in and out in 1 minute. It's absolutely ridiculous. All right. Again, why do these occur? That's what we need to be able to explain. Well, it's the same. We need to increase the amount of oxygen going to the working muscles and also remove the waste products. And the main one that we expire is CO2. Respiration increases during exercise to enable the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide to take place, of course in the lungs. And there is a rapid increase in ventilation at the onset of exercise. As soon as you start, you're going to start breathing in a lot more, which at lower intensities is due to breathing deeper breaths. So you start like that. And at higher intensities, it's associated with breathing more rapidly. So a bit like that. Another graph here, or graph, some people call them, shows us this oxygen uptake, or ventilation I should use. So you can see at rest, 20 litres per minute, boom, exercise takes off, rapid rise. So we're trying to get to that nice level up here, kind of as quick as we can, because the sooner we can reach a steady state, the more happy your body will be and more comfortable. Like the red line there, if you continue at a high intensity, then you might find that you're pushing pretty hard and you're going to be experiencing some discomfort because you can't quite remove the build-up of byproducts. And then the harder you go during the work period, the longer that recovery will take to return your body to regular resting levels. So this is what we're looking at there. We'll cover this in a bit more detail. All right, respiratory responses. So we've got an increase in gas exchange. This is also called diffusion. Really a key word that we could look at for PE over a number of dot points this year. And basically what we're talking about here, this is probably the main thing to remember. So the movement of gas, such as oxygen and carbon dioxide, from an area of high pressure to an area of low pressure, or area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. So it occurs 2 main spots, but obviously everywhere, a lot of other spots around the body. But from a PE point of view, we're worried about the lungs. So you breathe in, your lungs fill with oxygen. We want to get that oxygen into our bloodstream. So through the alveoli, it goes out into the capillaries, and that diffusion occurs. Then is delivered via the arteries to the muscles, the working muscles as well, importantly. And then, of course, the oxygen concentration is higher in the blood supply around the muscles than inside the muscle. Same thing occurs with that diffusion. And, of course, as a byproduct of the ATP resynthesis, we notice that the carbon dioxide also moves in the other direction, so higher concentration in the muscle and a lower concentration in the blood stream surrounding the muscle. So that's how we remove some carbon dioxide. All right, cardiovascular responses. Okay, what we've got here is how does our heart and our blood vessels respond? And we're getting a lot of key responses here at the heart. So we're looking at a stroke volume. So your heart is going to pump kind of harder, so more blood is being pumped out of the left ventricle per beat. Number of beats per minute that your heart does is going to increase, which we can demonstrate that quite easily in class. And of course, your cardiac output, which is those two things combined, will also give you a total number of litres per minute. And for some reason, they like to use the Q symbol for cardiac output, and I have no idea why. Alrighty, a couple of little graphs here to show you that as your intensity increases, so that's the watts, the power. So the higher the watts, the faster you're going on a bike, or if you're running and you can measure it. And we're getting a linear, right? So when we're looking at a trend in this graph, it's going up in an equal proportion to the intensity until you reach a maximal effort, and then you can probably not hold that for very long. And then the heart rate plateaus. Even though you still might keep pushing the intensity, you won't be able to go much further. Stroke volume's the same. see there at rest, it's 50 to 70 mils being pumped out per beat out of your left ventricle. As soon as that intensity increases, we're going to we go to quite a high sort of level quickly, and then it sort of steadies off a bit until you reach your max. So you can see a rapid supply there. Oh, yep, there's the Q from earlier that I was talking about. Increases in Q, cardiac output, arise from a rapid rise in both stroke volume and heart rate until an intensity of approximately 60% of VO2 max. Beyond this intensity, it is the heart rate that keeps increasing rather than the amount of blood being pumped out per beat. Another couple of things to be aware of, and we'll be talking about cardiovascular responses. Remember let's not forget the blood. It's been a big key element that we can really improve through training. Our blood pressure will go up straight away. We're going to get an increase in venous return, so we're getting more blood going back to the heart and lungs so that can be reoxygenated and also remove the waste products. And one thing to be aware of is on a hot day, if you're sweating a lot, you're going to lose a little plasma. And also a key one here, and a couple more key words here we love to make you sound very smart, is basically we can redirect the blood flow to the active areas of the body, or the working muscles. So through the vasoconstriction, it just means closing off certain areas, getting more blood going to where we want it, and less blood where we don't necessarily need it. Perfectly demonstrated in the graph in front of you here. So the main thing you want to look at is at rest, we're getting 20% of blood being, transported to the muscles. You start exercising, not only does the total amount of blood being pumped around the body increase, 5 times, by 5 times, but we're also getting a increase in the amount of blood getting delivered to the muscles. A huge amount, 84%. So it shows you how important that is. Okay, acute muscular responses. So we're getting to the last parts of this slide here. Getting an increased blood flow to the working muscles, so we need more muscle there. We're able to increase the motor unit and fiber recruitment, which just means you can contract your muscles with more force and a more number of times when required. The fuel stores which we're using in the muscle, you've got some stored ATP and PC, that's going to be decreasing. We're going to increase the lactate production, which of course is related to hydrogen ions, which is the bad guy. Your muscle temperature is going to increase. You're going to increase the oxygen consumption of the muscle. And a lovely one I'd like to talk about there is the arteriovenous oxygen difference. Oop, I've gone the wrong way. Okay, this is explained here. So the oxygen, we'll do this in a bit more detail in class, but the oxygen in the blood is being delivered through the arterioles, which is here. And the muscle is extracting as much oxygen sort of as it can. If the intensity is really high, it wants to extract, the maximal amount. Basically, the more well-trained you are, the more efficient your muscles are at extracting that oxygen. So then, on the other side of the muscle, when the venule and the veins are returning the deoxygenated blood back to the heart and lungs, we're going to notice that's going to have a lower total oxygen concentration. So you can see there, we started with 20 milliliters per 100 of oxygen in the blood, and then we're left with 6 milliliters per 100, so that shows that the muscle has used 14 milliliters, and that's just to show you that one. Obviously, yes, we'll do that in a little bit more detail in class. This is another really good table that you'll be copying into your book, so we won't go over everything in there, but a really valuable revision tool. If you can remember probably 3 to 4 acute responses for each body system and explain how they aid or improve your ability to perform, then you'll be on the right track. So pick some there and make sure you can explain them. And often we sort of say, well, don't do heart rate and stroke volume because they're all leading to the same cardiac output. And then the last thing here, we're going to run out of time, but we've got oxygen consumption. So the aerobic system is unable to respond to these demands immediately due to a lag in the system, so therefore we need to rely on an alternate source of ATP. So our anaerobic systems come into play, and this is the whole principle behind this oxygen deficit that we're seeing at the start and the epoch at the end. So at the start, you start running, there's not enough oxygen there, so you use anaerobic systems. At the end, you're going to rely on the removal of those byproducts, which requires oxygen that continues to be pumped around the body at the conclusion of that. All right, 3 more key words there. We'll jot them in our notes. And we have come in in exactly 15 seconds, and my time is up.